Everyone wants to know about Bitcoin. I want you to dispel or poo-poo or agree with things we commonly hear about Bitcoin. So here we go. Seen and overheard on the street at Katz's Deli. Bitcoin is the world's first distributed, decentralized Ponzi scheme. Max Keiser.
It's demonstrably, provably not a Ponzi scheme. As a matter of fact, it's a reverse Ponzi scheme. In a Ponzi scheme, the base of the Ponzi scheme has to constantly get wider and bigger. The new money has to keep coming in to pay the investors off who have gotten into the Ponzi scheme early. That's a Ponzi scheme, as Charles Ponzi created the Ponzi scheme with his scheme of, I believe it was stamps, and they had a stamp collecting Ponzi scheme, and that's where we get the term from. And we now also look at Bernie Madoff was running a bit of a Ponzi scheme in that he was paying off investor returns with the new money coming in. Now let's look at Bitcoin. Bitcoin is actually the opposite. Every 4 years, the amount of money that's mined on a daily basis shrinks by 50% in what's called the halving. So we started off with 50 coins per distribution on the mining output per 10 minutes. And then we had a halving down to 25, and then a halving down to 12 and a half, and a halving down to 6 and a quarter. So actually it's a reverse Ponzi scheme. The amount of money that's entering the system is shrinking, not expanding. So that's a very simple point. And anyone who calls it a Ponzi scheme, A, doesn't know what a Ponzi scheme is, and B, has never looked at Bitcoin for more than 5 seconds, or just accepted like a Nouriel Rubini tweet as if that has a meaning. But he's never looked at it either. So that's demonstrably, provably wrong.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you know what 2 + 2 = 4, then you know that this is not a Ponzi scheme if you look at a definition of a Ponzi scheme and you look at the distribution of coins within Bitcoin.
Oh, seen and overheard on the street. The only thing Bitcoin has going for it is a rising price. Without it, it would tank.
Well, that's again, not true. So what Bitcoin has for it is that it's a savings technology, the best savings technology ever invented, the best hard money that's ever been invented. And humans have a real need for hard money to do trade. Humans like to trade and they want hard money. That's what, over the thousands of years, gold kind of evolved to be a great way to trade in something that had store of value, so that I accepted your gold today for goods and services. I could respend that gold in the future. And you couldn't do that so well with beads and shells or, the different things that have been tried for money for many years. And gold was doing a pretty good job for a long time. Then Bitcoin came around and it's doing a better job than gold because it's scarcer than gold. So it's harder than gold. It's absolute scarcity of 21 million coins. Gold is inflating at, let's say, 2% a year, and we know that if the price of gold goes up, the technology to find more gold will also increase. So that number could go 3, 4, 5, 6% a year, just like we saw in the energy markets. It's not, the gold supply is elastic. It's not inelastic. It's not finite. It's elastic. So that's a problem. Number two, it's unlike gold, it's unconfiscatable. When I was Bitcoin, you cannot confiscate Bitcoin. You cannot censor Bitcoin. It's portable, more portable than gold. It's more divisible than gold. So it's on every single key point that you like gold, Bitcoin does a better job. It's hard money and it's a store of value. That's its primary purpose. That's its number one goal.
When new buyers stop coming in, then Tether buys and manipulates the price higher.
Tether is 7% or less of the market. It was big in 2017. That was a talking point from 2017. It was resurrected recently. I think Rubini likes to keep talking Tether. Again, no, he has no understanding of this at all and has never done any research on it. He just farts into his Twitter account and expects everyone to think that his farts smell really good. But guess what, Nouriel? Your farts stink and your logic is broken and you haven't even spent 3 minutes studying this and how NYU keeps you employed. As an NYU alumnus, I've sent a few letters to them saying he needs to be fired, gotten rid of immediately. He's a plague at NYU. He's embarrassing alumnus like myself at NYU with his utter contempt for civility and, well, maybe not civility, but intelligence. And it's gross. And he should be gotten rid of. I don't care if he's got tenure. So Tether is not a factor. Tether is not in play. It was brought about in 2017 as a way to trade in and out of Bitcoin into a U.S. dollar surrogate. It's basically a money market. You know, money markets have a use. People trade in and out of a money market. If I have an account full of stocks and I sell my stock and I go into a money market until I find a new stock. Same thing with a Tether or a stable coin or a U.S. dollar type cryptocurrency. It's like a money market. And like in the money markets in 2008, remember, there was a threat that it would break the buck because money markets are not, exactly 100% a guaranteed piece of paper. Yeah, there's counterparty risk with basic money market account. Hello, if this is news to you, wake up. Your money market has counterparty risk. So does Tether. So does every security in the world. So does every exchange in the world. The only thing without counterparty risk is Bitcoin.
Okay, Bitcoin. It can melt down, but you can't melt it down. Bitcoins are not shiny, golden, and metallic as media has you believe. Bitcoins are just 32-byte numbers, nothing more than that. And when the market crashes, you can't melt them down or use them as jewelry or for electrical circuits. But I think the point is it wrong to depict Bitcoin, and like I said, I'm a culprit of it, as this shiny gold object that we show in our B-roll when it's just 32-byte numbers that you can't really do anything with?
No, you should, in your B-roll, you should show Bitcoin as what's called a coin kite, a digital device that holds Bitcoin. It's a company up in Canada, and it's a way to... It's the equivalent of a shiny gold ounce, but it's just the media lazily likes to put up gold coins to depict Bitcoin, and so that's their problem, not my problem.
So this one comes from @Lobberhornrun. If Max is not worried about government regulation and interference in Bitcoin, please explain why.
Right, because first of all, there's nothing the government can do to stop Bitcoin. So there's no way to regulate Bitcoin. And that's what the governments are finding out. They would love to regulate it and they would love to stop it. But so far they've been unsuccessful because the computational power that runs Bitcoin, running at about 160 quintillion calculations per second, is beyond the reach of any government or any group of governments. So it's achieved escape velocity. Maybe 5 or 6 years ago, if governments really wanted to, they may have been able to thwart Bitcoin. But now it's too late. It's simply escape velocity has been achieved, and there's nothing any government can do, number one. Number two, you've got people inside government that are now pro-Bitcoin. So you've got a senator from Wyoming, for example, who is absolutely pro-Bitcoin, who's lobbying for Bitcoin, who wants to change the state of Wyoming to be a Bitcoin state. They've got a Bitcoin bank, and they want to compete with Delaware. They want to compete with other states. So you've got on the senatorial level, Bitcoin is making inroads. You've got people in Congress, in the Senate, who own Bitcoin, who are not going to fight Bitcoin because they would benefit by owning Bitcoin. They love Bitcoin. It's a fifth column working inside the government. So they're not motivated to stop Bitcoin. Number four, what is more likely is that in the next couple of years, the government, the U.S. government, the IRS will come to Bitcoiners and say, hey, Bitcoiners, we'll give you a 90% discount on your taxes if you pay us in Bitcoin. As other countries around the world are racing ahead and they're accumulating Bitcoin and they're mining Bitcoin. So America right now is not even entered the hash war or hash race or Bitcoin race with these other countries. Remember, in the 1960s, America entered the space race to compete with the Soviet Union to get into outer space, and there was that Sputnik moment. But America hasn't had their Bitcoin moment yet. We're still letting these other countries around the world grab the brass ring, to grab the momentum, and to now moving ahead of the U.S. There's a possibility, for example, Iran could be the richest country in the world because it's aggressively mining Bitcoin and accumulating Bitcoin right now. Does the U.S. want that to be the outcome? Well, if they don't start moving now and start accumulating Bitcoin, then that's the outcome. So, hello, third world status. Goodbye, American century. Goodbye, U.S. dollar. So the more likely outcome is that the government is not regulating Bitcoin so much as they need to accumulate. They're going to set an industrial policy where it's going to be we're going to subsidize energy and we're going to mine and accumulate Bitcoin because we want to be number one. If they don't want to be number one, America, then step aside and let some other country be number one because you're too fat and lazy. Get the f- out of the way.
At Resnoir Applebee's writes, Nigel Farage recently supported Bitcoin. How does Max view political support, and does he see Bitcoin becoming a right versus left issue? Really good question.
Bitcoin is not right or left. It's on its own vector. It's on its own path. And it, as I said, it disintermediates the nation state. So you don't need politicians. You don't need politicians. You don't need right or left. You just have the hardest money asset in the world, and you're free to trade with anybody. And this is the thing. Fiat money promotes war. Paul Krugman over at the New York Times said that the U.S. dollar is backed with men with guns. He admitted in the New York Times that the U.S. dollar fosters violence. It's backed by violence. It's terrorism in a little slip of paper. The U.S. dollar is a terrorist note. This essentially is backed by financial terrorism, whereas Bitcoin is peace. So if I want to get some Bitcoin from you, I have to offer you something that you're willing to take and trade for Bitcoin. So there's no coercion because it's unconfiscatable. I cannot confiscate or coerce the Bitcoin out of you, so I can only get it through peaceful trade. So that hopefully appeals to the angels of our better nature, us as humans, and we move away from this violence and the paper money and the fiat money and the U.S. foreign policy and the politicians that love violence. They live on violence. We don't want that anymore. We want peace. We want Bitcoin.
Okay. This is a personal question, but came up a lot. People want to know how much Bitcoin you own.
Well, I'm probably not going to sell my Bitcoin. I'm going to pass it on to the next generation. I think I have a responsibility to do that. And number two, I wouldn't want to sell Bitcoin back into fiat and give power peace, turn peace back into war. And I'm not motivated in any way to sell any Bitcoin. The more I hold, the hodler, I keep going hodling Bitcoin. The faster the revolution happens away from war, and we enter an era of peace. The thing about that holds humans back is something that's a vestige from our days, hundreds of thousands of years ago. Hard-coded in our mind is this instinct toward fear, and that's what holds us back. Bitcoin gets rid of our fears and replaces it with love. And
how much, you own? I understand why you wouldn't want to disclose that, but is there a range you could share?
Well, I started buying it at $1, and that was 10 years ago. So, there's a lot of zeros.
All right. We'll respect your privacy there.